Good evening, everyone. It's Glenn. I wanted to do a follow-up video on the pyramid dating issue. I did a previous video on that, thinking that there is no evidence that it is 2560 BC, but in fact, it's probably the past 500 years, 600 years. There's been a couple of videos now coming out from other channels talking about just a little bit on the fact that Egypt's a bit fake. But I wanted to look into it. There are basically two ways that they're using to prove the pyramids are 4,600 years. One is radiocarbon dating, and the second one is the Diary of Merer. I think that's how you pronounce it, which is a labourer around the period that refers to Khufu several times in his diaries. So we'll go through both of those quickly. Basically, the Khufu Pyramid of Giza is the most famous Great Pyramid, and there's an inscription that you can see here, just on the right image here, and that's the graffiti that says Khufu's Pyramid. So that doesn't really give us much, and if you look at the image closely, it's obviously just plastering by the looks of it. It's cheap graffiti, so who cares? Now, there's two ways. What they do now is that people do mortar sampling of the basic lime scale or quicklime mortar of various structures to see how old things are. So you have to look at that. Now, people have been doing carbon dating of the pyramids, and the way carbon dating works, it's just written here on this one called ERA, how old are the pyramids? It gives you a rough idea that carbon dating is basically a living organism, such as seashells and things, will exchange carbon, including carbon-14. And then when the creature dies, the carbon-14 exchange stops, and it will deteriorate at a known rate per 1,000 years. And it's generally known how much an organism will contain C14, and then when they dig it up, depending on how much is left, depends on how old it is. So it has a half-life. Now, they can do this with mortar, and they've done this on the pyramids in several data points. So there's a lot of points where they've done it. So I originally thought, well, they've come up with dates that varied between 3000 BC to 1600 BC. I think some of the mortar sampling has an issue, which some of it seems younger than they expected. There's a huge amount of randomity, very large error rates, so plus and minus several years. So I don't know how correct it is. They do go through the issues of carbon dating, one being the phenomena in the old where when they built the pyramids, they reuse pre-existing materials such as existing pottery. I would say that is true. They did reuse existing material. However, according to this article, was recycling done in the 12th dynasty. Anyway, before I go on about this, let's just go a little bit on how mortar testing is done. There's a great article here, a field guide to mortar sampling on Wiley Online Library. Now, the author goes on about the basics of mortar sampling, but I want you to take a look at this. So here we have some limestone, which is CaCO3, and then once it's burnt, it releases CO2 and it becomes another substance. When you add water, it becomes this, another substance again, which becomes the mortar. And when that mortar dries, it becomes CaCO3 again, as well as Ca14CO3. So it has carbon-14 as well. So this generally, it starts off at limestone, it becomes quicklime, added with water, and they add the aggregate sand and they turn it into mortar. And as it hardens, it becomes limestone again. So basically, it starts at limestone, they turn it into a mortar, and then as it dries, it becomes limestone again. Does that all make sense? Okay, so what would have happened, say, in the 1400s or the 1500s AD, when I think it was built, I would say that they had pre-existing limestone structures there, most likely Khufu's altar or Khufu's something or other. They have simply pulled it down and they fired all of the limestone, turned it to limescale, and because they were using 5,000-year-old limestone, the carbon-14 hadn't changed, and it would have kept the same date. So in the 1400s or 1500s, when they built the pyramids and they reused existing limestone that was there, that limestone that was there in place most likely was from the time of Khufu or older. So I don't think that carbon-14 is going to prove that the pyramids are built in 2600 BC, but I do think it proves that the material goes back to 3000 BC and was recycled. This is also proven that one of the samples in this study I see here, there is something where they find all this other material in there, like a dead animal from 1600 BC or something. So that kind of doesn't make sense because that's way too late. All right, the next thing is Mortar, the papyrus of Mortar, which is okay. So this is the logbook of Mortar, which was a labor at the time, and this paper presented by what's on academia.com, Institute of Eastern Archaeology, France. Okay, summary, it's all in French, sorry. Okay, so this papyrus is about 20 pages, it's quite long, maybe it's more, and this guy keeps a logbook of every day over a 5-month period of him moving stones around. This is the translation, annotated. There's obviously gaps because of damage to the papyrus. Now, people say all it does is mention Khufu, the building of the pyramids. No, it doesn't. It tends to measure, it tends to discuss and record stones being moved, and doesn't really refer to the construction of the pyramid at all. The summary by the academic says, they provide a unique testimony, even if indirect, of the construction of an extraordinary monument. That is the Great Pyramid of Cheops. Okay. Now, it doesn't say that directly there was any building of pyramids. There's reference to Khufu. There's reference of moving stones, staying nights, doing this, doing a job. It's nothing special. So this is an assumption. So what I think we're looking at here, the people that are creating the narrative of how the pyramids are that old would have known that there was a King Khufu, and they would have known that he was referenced, and so they would have ascribed this pyramid, which they would have built in the 1400s to 1700s, I'm not too sure when, they would have ascribed it to Khufu, because they knew there was a Khufu there, and they knew that he had a temple there. So, because they had prior knowledge, they had the libraries of Alexandria, which they stolen, they would have had information in order to doctor up a new narrative in the 19th century. So, once again, I think that the Great Pyramids of Giza are a Renaissance alchemy project from 1400s up to the late 1700s, including the Sphinx being all recent limestone reworking and reusing existing limestone structures and burning them again and repurposing them in a pyramid like this. And that's what I think. Okay, thanks.